What do a speaking coach, a strategy consultant, and a CEO of a recruitment company have in common? Sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But honestly, it's all about finding out what people really do in their jobs. The stories, the struggles, the coffee breaks. The real stuff you won't find in a job title.
Welcome to a space where we sit down with people from all kinds of careers, have a laugh, and dive into what makes their work meaningful. Whether you're looking to learn something new or just here for a good story, let us be your guide. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Charlie.
And let's get casually
Bro!
Yeah, today we are sitting with Gonçalo Sequeira, CEO of Hiire, Hiire, a specialized recruitment company who helps companies hire the talent they need. Gonçalo, you're also a master of the LinkedIn game. You're a LinkedIn top voice. And besides that, you're an investor and a speaker. Very complete guy that we are right here. Gonçalo, welcome. We're very pleased to have you today. Can you please start by telling us a little bit about what you're doing and how you got there?
Yeah. Jeff, first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a pleasure to speak with you again. And especially with that introduction, the expectations are very high. So I hope I can meet them. So what I do, so I have a recruitment company that I started in 2022. In a nutshell, we help companies with difficult roles. So when a company is struggling to find the talents that can be a C-level, can be a manager, can be a technical position, but usually it's someone they have a hard time to find because or they are rare in the market or they need to replace someone internally and they cannot display the position online, for example, because it's confidential, or they just have a lot of hiring to do and they need more help. Usually they reach out to us Hiire to help them. Besides that, like you shared, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I create a lot of content to help companies to find talents and to help job seekers to find companies. So in a nutshell, this is a little bit where we are to do this match between companies that are trying to find talents and talent that is trying to find companies. And usually these two roles don't talk very well with each other, so we try to be this company in the middle that help to connect both of them in a more speedy way. And besides that, I really like to earn money, so I invest and I like to be paying attention to opportunities. I like to create content. I like to do sports. So this is me in a nutshell. But I spend 90% of my time at Hiire, and then probably 30-50% of my time on the rest of the stuff that I told you. So my time goes over time.
Fascinating. So, Gonçalo, I am a sucker for a story. Can you tell us what made you want to go into the kind of consolidation of hiring and hirees? What made you curious about bringing those two people together?
Good question. So I think how I started, I choose human resources. That was my studies just because I just looked to the course and was very generic, and I thought this will be the thing. But when I finish it and I started to send my first CVs, I have a story that I sent, I don't know, 10 CVs, and I wasn't getting any answers because I was sending CVs at Aeropass. And until someone sent me an email saying, "Hey, we really would like to speak with you, but you don't have your phone number on the CV." And I was like, "Oh, I did a 3 years degree and I cannot do a good CV." And I did a degree in human resources that should be the ones that are analyzing CVs. And that was my first light of there is something missing here. They, at university, they didn't teach us how to find a job. They teach us a little bit on how to recruit people, but how I can recruit people if I cannot find a job. And then I started to figure out that all my colleagues leaving the university, nobody knew how to find a job. And when I started being a recruiter, I understood that most candidates didn't knew how to find a job, how to behave on an interview, how to send job applications, etc., etc., etc. And that's started a little bit my interest about helping talents to find companies since I was already being in a company that was trying to find talent. But was that first trigger that I was like, okay, I'm wrong and I should know this, what I need to do to speed up. So this is a little bit one of my first encounters with a bad CV that was from myself. And I discovered this wasn't only me, that was a lot of people that couldn't do a good CV. And I was just missing something very basic. But nowadays, people sometimes missing something much more important, and sometimes it's not so easy to identify. And I was lucky because someone told me, hey, gave me feedback to improve this. Because what is going on right now, it's people are making mistakes, I would say, and nobody's telling them what they should do differently. And that's a little bit one of my missions. It's really try to spread the knowledge that I have with job seekers so everyone is a little bit on the same playground. Because it's not because Jeff is better than me doing interviews that he's a better employee. You know, just because people are better sending CVs or doing interviews, that doesn't mean in the end they'll be better employees. But if everyone has the skills to search for a job, then we can see who are the better employees because the companies also need to speed up the game of assessing the talent. But I think there is still a lot of work to do on the candidate sides to even out the play fields, while we still have a lot of work to do as well on the company sides to make sure they know how to hire.
Well, that's an extremely complete answer. Thank you very much. I think you nailed the point when you say that most of us start completely clueless about this whole hiring game. And we don't know because most of the time we don't have the feedback we would need to get in order to improve. And I believe it's the same when you start a company, when you prospect, when you try to sell. Most of the time you get ignored, but you never get the, hey, you missed, you forgot your phone number, or oh, you forgot to tell us about what's those things that are very crucial. And you also have another very interesting point that says if you're very good at interviews, doesn't make you good at getting the job. And this is something that I realized early on as an extremely introverted and shy guy. I was very competent in tech, but I dreaded the interviews so much that I was frustrated that people with less technical skills than me would get the better job. So in my case, I turned it over and then I started to teach and learn and then teach public speaking. So I kind of overcame it. But I think this is a very interesting point to make, that it's a different skill. And if you don't learn it, the skill to interview well, it's going to be a bit hard. So the question I would like to ask you, Gonçalo, there are many people who are out there looking for a job. And most of them have no clue about how to make a CV that stands out, something that's different than the others. And they might not know some very obvious things that they should do, but because they don't have this negative feedback, they just cannot do it. Since you were in the other side, you were reading the CVs and not just writing them. So you know what are the things that someone who screens the CV checks. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know in this area?
Yeah. You want the long answer or the short one?
As long as humanly possible. No, I'm just
Yeah. No, I'll
sum it
leave
up in maybe like what's the most important parts that people kind of like think, okay, maybe that's not what I'm doing, but I should be doing.
Because I think the most important part about the CV is not the CV itself. Because knowing on how to write a CV, so knowing that you need the phone number there, that you need certain information there, you go on Google, you go on ChatGPT, you go on Hiire YouTube channel. We have a masterclass teaching you on how to do a CV. Okay, so the hard skills about finding a job on how to behave on how to behave in an interview, on how to do a CV, these kind of things that are a little bit the more obvious things about job search are on the internet. So the only excuse that people don't that people have, it's they are lazy to not research about it. Okay, I was lazy to not review my CV a couple of times and send it to a couple of friends and ask their opinions about it, or have a checklist about what a CV should have. That if you go on Google, you'll find it a checklist for sure. So, in a nutshell, what a CV needs: your name, your phone number, your email, your location doesn't need your address, and this is all the personal information that usually you need. I think I'm not forgetting anything. Then a short summary about who you are and what you want, 3 to 5 skills of what you are good at it, and then your experience from the most recent to the oldest one. A lot of people start with the oldest one to the most recent. Is the CV, it's the most important things first, always like that. You need to show the most important things first, and then on those experience, talking not only about tasks but more important than that, results. Then you put your education. Usually you do it like this if you are a professional with more than 3 years of experience. If you're a student with 1 year of experience or less, you put the education first because that's more important. Okay, and then you put certification, hobbies, language, these kind of things if you still have space. Okay, ideally 1 page or 2 maximum. Okay, in my opinion, because CVs are also opinion basis. But more important than all of this that I just shared is think about what you want. This is what nobody does. This is what I didn't do when I left university. This is what my clients don't do when they want to search for a new job. They don't sit and they don't write what they want in their next challenge, which type of company they would like to work with, which type of industry they would like to work more, or which type of industries they don't like to work with, which type of people or leadership they want to work with. So all these criterias, like companies have a criteria on the profile they need. They need a software developer with 5 years of experience in Java, blah, 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 blah. Why people don't have a criteria of companies with more than X employees, with X salary in X location, blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing. Just turn around the tables. And a lot of people say that companies have the power to choose the people, but I, after I have experience in the job market, I had the power to choose which companies I would like to work for, because companies started to approach me and I was like, okay, I want to work for this one. I don't want to work for this one. Of course, that I couldn't choose in all the companies in the world. But I remember a time where I had 3 offers for different companies and I could choose which one I would like to work for. And if I can have this reflection before I sending a CV, this is what I recommend. Before you sending a CV, before you starting applying, you stop, you think, you write about what you want in your life, in your career, how do you see yourself in 1, 2, 3 years, will be much easier to do the CV to get the job that you want. Because most people want a job. And for a job, you can go to the supermarket, there is always jobs there. But to have a good job, to have a fulfilling job, that requires more inner work first, and then with that work you can really get what you want. But if you don't know what you want, it's a little bit more complicated. So this is the long answer.
Yes.
That was profound. I think, and it's so funny because I am such a big advocate for kind of developing your own style, your own identity, your own thought of how do you want your life to proceed. But I never thought about that application in terms of a job search, right? Because I think, at least just speaking from my experience, educationally, we're always siloed, right? There's always a direct path, A to B to C to D, that's very clearly outlined when you maybe like get out of college, or start a professional career. I started my career as an accountant, and it's very clear cut. You start as a staff, you go to staff 2, you go to senior manager, so on and so forth. And nobody really talks about the alternatives that you can pivot into, right? I went into consulting, and then now I work as a networking coach and a strategy consultant. Um, I would have never thought, 5, 10 years ago, that was an option for me because I never kind of considered what I wanted outside of accounting.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess with that kind of concept in mind, that perception in mind, I'm sure you deal with clients that are more than just kids out of college, right? It's probably a lot of people maybe transitioning careers and figuring out, okay, well, I'm unsatisfied with the work that I'm doing right now. How do I get into maybe something new? And of course, there's the idea of definition, but when you meet a client that knows exactly what they want to do next, but it is so far off from what they're doing right now, how do you bridge that gap? How do you teach them to, okay, take the skills that you already learned and then remask them into something that makes sense for where you want to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good. It's two different problems. Yeah, people that don't know what they want, and then people that believe they want something that is very far away from what they get currently. And depending on, let's say that you are an accountant and you want to be a CFO and you have 3 years of experience. Okay, just for the sake of the argument. So it's possible. It just requires education, upskilling, and time. And that's what I try to pass to people. That's okay, you have a certain goal. This goal requires 5, 10 years. You need to do a master's degree or an MBA or wherever. You need to have more experience, maybe change jobs 2 or 3 times. And more important than that, go to speak with CFOs first. That's what people don't do. Go to speak with people that are already where you want to be to see if you like it. Because, and this is hard to do because people like, oh, but people like this will answer me. Probably not. But if you send 10, 20 message and two of them answer and you have one conversation, it's better than nothing. And if you speak with the CFO and understand the career path, understand the struggles, understand how they get there, then you can have a better feeling if you want to go to the same path. Before I become an entrepreneur, I was already thinking about that for the past, I don't know, 5 years, watching videos, consuming a lot of content. And this was sure on my mind that I wanted to have my company. I just didn't know when to start it. So, but for me, it was obvious that I will go to that step sooner or later because I already saw other people doing it. And I was like, okay, this is tough. This requires time. This requires effort. This will require me doing podcasts in different hours of my day, but it's something that I enjoy and that gives me energy. And now I'm living it and it's give me the energy back. But people don't try to have a feeling or a touch feeling with the reality they want to get. And that's usually my advice for people that are a bit or that are far away from what they want. It's talk with people that are already there, ask questions how they reach that level, because that will help you not only to understand if you want to do the same path, but also that those people can help you to mentoring you on that path. So it's 2 on 1, you get information about the reality. And if you want to pursue that reality, you might have a mentor that will help you on that journey. So in a nutshell, this is a little bit how I help them, but that also depends a bit case by case, because if it's too far away, if it's an accountant that wants to become a CTO, needs a completely different angle, right? Like if you want to become a CTO in 5 years, you need to code 12 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. So it requires a different level of effort and energy. So I think these kind of things are really case by case. And that sometimes, yeah, people reach out to us, oh, can you give me some advice? I can give you a lot of advices, but the advices that will help you, they need to be personalized, especially on these kind of changes in your life, because Charles, you're saying that you never thought about applying this to job search, but job search is 1/3 of our life, right? So, or job or working in a job is 1/3 of our life. So I think really requires this preparation, and people sometimes delegate this or put this in a second plan. But I know if they are happy with their job, at least 1/3 of their life will be much better. And I bet that that 1/3 will impact the rest of their lives because their financial situation will be better, relationships will be better, and so on.
Oh yeah, again, very good, very good advices. Oh yeah, I can completely relate that if you feel great in your job, in your career, in your professional life, it somehow get translated in the energy that you're having when you do other things, and it's there's really a virtuous circle that goes in, even if transitions can be extremely scary. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, in my experience, it's not that hard to get people to talk about what they're doing if you have a genuine approach. So I'm not sure about reaching out to people randomly online, for example, but if you go to a conference or any type of event, especially if the person you want to talk to is a speaker at this conference, it's quite easy to get in touch after just by saying what you liked about this talk. And then just you can ask whatever question you want. But if you just straight say, hey, I'd like to do the type of work that you're doing, would you be okay to have a coffee or a chat with me? In my experience, people really love to share what they're doing because most of the time it's a big part of their life, and it's can be a passion.
Kind of the reason that this can exist, right?
Exactly. Why we're all here.
Yeah.
Could you tell more, Gonçalo, about what types of companies you're working with? You said that as someone who's looking for a job, you need to know what you want. I expect it's the same for you. You need to know what type of companies you want to work with. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. So just one thing that I didn't explain in the beginning, we have two big areas at Hire. One B2B, where we work with companies and we find talent for them, and one B2C, where we work with talents and we help them to find jobs. So it's two different services, two different targets. But talking about the companies, we work with big companies, for example, like Siemens. It's our biggest name right now, but in Portugal, we also work with Cecil, Solvay. That was one of the big names that we also work here, and also startups in general. And one thing very important for us, it's in the beginning of any search, when you're trying to find any talent, one of our approaches that in my mind, it should be a little bit obvious for recruitment agencies, but I'm realizing more and more that is not. It's sitting with the clients and everyone that will look for this specific talent and fill a Google Docs with all the questions that we have, like type of seniority, type of technologies, working mode, results that you expect from this person, recruitment process. So I won't bother with all the questions, but really define all the criteria that we have for the person. So we design the role together with the clients to make sure that I understand what the client wants and the client understood that I understand what he wants. Because sometimes it's two different things. And I think this sharing of information, it's very important to make sure that both parties are aligned because Jeff, you can tell me, I want someone senior in accountant. Okay, but what is senior for you? Tell me what a senior needs to do. Needs to handle subjects without any supervision. Okay, any supervision in any cases. No, he might need supervision of a manager if something happens. Okay, what needs to happen for him to need a manager? So these kind of things that sometimes we think, oh, this is obvious, but it's not obvious for everyone. And what is obvious for one is not obvious for other. And that's sometimes what people mistake, is that we do assumptions too quick. And I do this all the time. And we need to do less assumptions and ask more times and ask twice the same questions in different ways to make sure that we know that. And usually this is a little bit the formula that we use to make sure that companies know what they are looking for. And it's exactly the same thing with people looking for companies. So it's just a matter of asking a different question in a different way.
You know, that is it, and it's so funny that you put it that way because it's common sense, right? There are very complex ideas that we build as humans that we try to translate using words or concepts that don't break down very easily person to person, and when we try to have expectations over how that communication works and it's not working, it's usually because we're not keeping it simple.
Mm-hmm.
um you know I I have in my neck of the woods, I'm in New York, uh, a lot of really great groups and kind of organizations devoted to uh, what they lovingly refer to as generalists, right? But they're not just uh, a person who can learn many different skills or has very different like randomized skills. For them, it's skills that are transferable from one area to another that provide a tremendous amount of value. But I think one of the biggest problems that they face, and really anyone who does more than one area or more than one career faces, is making that value apparent, right? Making that value upfront and easy to digest, especially when it comes to trying to say, okay, well, I did XYZ job for a couple of years, but the skills that I have are so very applicable to this position. Um, and it's hard to get that across on paper. I guess my question is, for people who have this kind of multifaceted career, myself included, uh, how do you go about translating those very complex skills that you can develop and putting them in a way that's palatable for someone like yourself who's looking through, I'm assuming, thousands and thousands of resumes, trying to find someone that meets that criteria? And maybe that person does, but you see a job title that's not exactly what you're looking for, and then you're kind of second guessing. How do you make sure that you're getting your skills across?
Yeah. For me, that's a very good question. And for me, it's pretty simple. However, depends a little bit which top jobs we are talking about. But instead of talking about the skills, the tasks, the competencies that you did, you just talk about the results that you achieve. Because the results that you might need to do in your next job might not be won't be the same, but employers want someone with a track record, someone that was successful before. Of course, that past success doesn't guarantee future success, but gives certain assurance, right? So, an example here, you are an accountant and you want to be a developer. Okay, and you can show examples where you were a successful an accountant because you were organized, because you pay attention to detail. This is two things that the developer also needs. So you just highlight that I got results very fast in accountant because of blah, 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 because of those skills. Instead of talking first about the skills, you talk about the results. Because that's at least why I want to hire someone, because they were good before. And people just don't talk about where they were good, talk about what they did. It's a little bit, it's the same but different. Okay, one thing is saying, oh, I did a shot. Another thing is I score a goal. And for you to score a goal, you need to make a shot, right? But you can make a lot of shots and not making any goals. But if you make a goal, that means that you make a shot. So tell recruiters that you make goals, if that's what you did. And that's what usually people think, oh, but I'm being overconfident. Well, yes, in an interview, you need to be overconfident because you are selling yourself. Okay, and people don't like the words selling, but that's what you are doing. That's what I'm doing here. That's what I do. That's what I do when I try to convince clients to work with me. That's what people are doing when they are interviewing for companies. They are selling their skills. Okay, but instead of selling their skills, they should sell their results, or they should show their results, and companies will buy their skills. For me, that's so simple as that, but then it's much more complex on how you write a good storyline to show your results. That's the hard part. But if you have the results in mind, metrics in mind, usually it's a way easier to create a storyline that will showcase your skills than just focus on the tasks that you did.
Well, you're in great company because this podcast loves sales, apparently.
Good to hear.
Very interesting way to put the focus on. Talk about the results and show the results. Yeah, because when you have a pile of skills at some point, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah, you could talk about what you achieved and talk about this. Very, very interesting. Thank you very much for this answer, Gonçalo. Now, on a slightly different topic, I know you are a digital nomad, and one of the main thing you didn't want to compromise on when you created your company was that you wanted to do it remotely. And I completely understand. I'm the same team. I'm also a remote worker for more than 12 years. So I understand how important it can be. You are also in the unique position where you advise hiring for remote workers. So you don't only work in this in remote hiring, but it's one of the things you're doing. And I read a LinkedIn post that you posted recently telling about what's important to look for remote workers. What you were saying that it's a little bit different than the skills that you're looking for if you want to hire someone on site. Can you please tell us a bit more about what are those differences and also about your own experience working remotely?
Yeah, very good questions. And that was one of the things that I forgot to mention on my presentation. Yeah, Hiire, it's a 100% remote company. Just because when I started, I wanted something that provide me this lifestyle of being anywhere, everywhere, doing whatever I want to do.
Oh, so sorry for the interruption. So you started by what you want. So this guy is applying what he advised. Very interesting.
That's good to hear because sometimes I doubt that, but then we have a proof here. But actually, that was the case. So the company that I was working in the Netherlands want me to go once a week to the office. Was a very good policy, but I was like, I don't want to live in the Netherlands. I want to travel, so I will open a company, and that's how the company started. So, and then I realized that I can also provide this to other people as well. And especially in HR recruitment world, there is not a lot of HR agencies or recruitment companies being 100% remote like we do, even though we have important moments with clients face to face. When I'm in Portugal, I go to lunch with my clients. I have a few of my consultants that needs to go to the office of my clients once a month, for example, or from time to time when it's important, we work from the office of our clients. So there is face-to-face work that needs to happen, and it's important that happens because the relationships are strengthened a way quicker when they are face-to-face. So if, for example, Jeff will invite me for this podcast and I wouldn't met him face to face, probably I wouldn't be here. If it was a random stranger on the internet asking me, do you want to go for a podcast? But no, I had the face before, we had a lunch together. These kind of things really straighten up relationships. So when people think about remote, it's not everything digitally. That's the first concept that I want to take out of the picture. When we talk about remote hiring versus hybrid hiring, let's say, so people that needs to be in the office twice a week, 3 times a week, or whatever that format is, what I think it's important on 100% remote, it's the people needs to have a lot of autonomy. So usually junior people have a hard time to be in 100% work environment. Even I defined the rule that I didn't want people with less than 2 years of experience at Hire because it was a way harder to train them. And I just hired the intern in October last year. It's working, but requires a way more of my time than I expected in the beginning. Okay, just because this person didn't saw other type of working environments, and that's what is missing when someone is working 100% remote. You need someone that ideally already worked remote before, but if they didn't have that opportunity, at least already saw a couple of different environments to understand what is right and what is wrong. Because the problem with the 100% remote environments, it's you as a manager, you see less of the person, of the work of the person. So there will be mistakes that you don't see. And on the office work, the same happens, but less. And when you see those mistakes, usually you see them and you can correct them a bit faster. Because first you spot them faster, and second, you are there so you can give feedback faster. With remote work, the same thing can happen if you have rituals that allow this. But first, your managers needs to have that maturity, and then the person needs to have an open mindset to receive that feedback. So requires more autonomy, more open mindset to receive feedback, and better managers to give that feedback. So it's more and more and more. Okay, so more autonomy, more feedback, more openness to receive that feedback. And you also need a good infrastructure to make sure that people socialize between themselves. So, and that's harder to do remote than on site because you don't have a coffee machine, you don't have a lunch together. Requires that if you have people in Asia, Europe, South America, wherever, you want to do an on-site event or off-site event, that you can find a spot that will be a bit better for everyone, and then you can merge everyone at the same time. While in a hybrid work, everyone is in the same country and it's easier to reunite everyone. So remote work, I think, have a lot of challenge, but a lot of benefits at the same time. So I think this is the big difference that you need to have regarding remote workers, is looking for people with more autonomy, that are more willing to receive feedback, and in general that are more proactive. Okay, because if you are in the office and you are not so proactive, but you have a manager pinging you, you might become proactive in the future. Okay, I think I wouldn't be the professional that I'm today if I didn't work in an office. So I see right now my brother started to work after COVID a little bit, and he needs to go to the office. And I tell him, please go to the office as much as you can. And I don't want him to find the 100% remote work, because I think you learn a way quicker if you are in the office and if you see others and you can compare yourself to others and you can see others working. Okay, while in a remote work, you are all day in your laptop. You can go to a co-working space, but that's not the same, and it's very hard to replicate, especially for juniors or people that are starting their career that never saw other people working. They need to learn with the examples, and that remote work, the examples are way harder to see. So I think that's the challenge of remote work.
I can firsthand tell you how difficult it is to start your career in a fully remote space. especially when you're in like a highly technical field where the difference between a successful launch and an unsuccessful launch is maybe two, three little actions that happen in the background, right? Um, but that being said, having gone from remote to hybrid to in person, then back to kind of like a remote style, uh, I don't see anyone who is super satisfied with a fully in office experience because the quality of life is just staggering. It's a much different playing field knowing, okay, I can get my work done, my laundry done, hang out with my kids, and everything in the day that I need to, um, and there should be no problem. And a big part of that, like you said, is building systems in place to figure out how do we make sure that everything is running well and we can still be in contact, we can still communicate, we can still socialize even because that's a huge part of making sure that we're efficient is making sure that we're communicative. So when you're looking at kind of the roles that you're trying to fill and developing an idea of, okay, how do I create a request or kind of like a posting or the idea of matching this role to someone. How do you kind of, as a business owner, create this process? Because I'm sure it's incredibly difficult to sit down with your client who's saying, "Hey, I need a developer. I need a senior developer," and sit down with them and say, "Sure, but you need to make sure that you have kind of like a policy in place for remote work and you have to have these really great managers already available and there's a lot of kind of baggage on the business side that comes with that. How do you kind of put that into perspective for your clients on the hiring side?
Okay, good question. That depends on the level of maturity of each client as well. But we have a lot of requests like this, like give me a developer. Here is the job description. I'm like, yeah, let's sit together. And he's like, the job description is there. Like, give me candidates. I'm like, we need to sit together. Otherwise, I don't know you. First thing that I want to understand is your personality, because Java developers, for the sake of the example, there is millions out there. Um, so that's what I try to say to the client, basically to ask them, hey, did you had the bad hires before? They'll say, oh yes, I'm tired of hiring bad people. Cool. How you did the hire before? Oh, I send the job description to agencies and they provide me candidates. And I'm like, oh, so do you want to do the same thing again, expecting different results? That's the phrase that I use the most with people. It's like, so you are getting the same results, so you are doing the same thing, and you don't want to change what you are doing. So I think we are not a good fit because we need to do something different for you to achieve different results. So it's usually try to understand the context they have. Then this can be more difficult if it's the first time that's a hiring manager is hiring. Oh, it's no, it's the first time, first person to my team, but they usually are more open for questions. So when they made a lot of hiring mistakes, they are a little bit less patient to questions and they just want to see people. So it's really to put them the truth in their face. It's like, you want something, I need to understand really well what you want and also what you need, because sometimes it's a bit different. Um, so only sitting together, only go through these questions, only making you think about what you want, we can maybe getting different results. Because if you also go for an interview only assessing the candidate and not selling the value proposition of the company, we also have a problem. Because the good candidates will want to work for a good company, for a company that provides flexibility, that provides remote work, blah, 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 blah. And if you cannot offer that, or do you have a good answer why we are 4 days on site? If you are 4 days on site, you need a good answer for that. Or we will lose candidates. Or I don't even will send you candidates because everyone that I will speak with won't be open for 4 days a week in the office. But if I can create a good storyline why I need people 4 days in the office, and we can create that storyline together, and I tell the candidates that, and you tell the candidates the same, we can convince people. Won't be a lot of people that want to work 4 days a week in the office, but will be people that want to be more in the office than 100% remote. That's one thing that I also surprised me last year that I started to find out that there'll be developers that want to be in office. Not 100% of the time, but they will be okay with 3-4 times sometimes because people miss this connection, especially expats that move countries to a new country. They want to make connections, or people that really want to be in office. I won't be one of those people, but there will be people for everything. So it's really finding a good reason for that. And finding good reasons, we need to make good questions, and people need to be open to answer those questions. But most of the times we have a quite reasonable level of understanding and level of working because I like to work with companies and people that trust me. And if that trust is not there, we won't work together. And when they say, yes, we want to work with you, they already know that I will ask them difficult questions. Or at least this is my expectation. And I hope it's their expectations as well. So I didn't have that crush yet of, oh, but here is the GD, just find people. We always need to jump for a conversation to start with, and we'll have a lot of conversations to calibrate the profiles because sometimes we have an idea, we find different people, and we ending up to hire them.
So it seems like part of your job is almost coaching the companies to help them be clear on what they're looking for, what they need. I can relate the fact that, in IT, many times it happens a lot. What they're looking for isn't what they need. This is it's so tricky because you're like, how do you approach someone who are 100% sure that what they need is this, but then you're like, this is a recipe for disaster. If you get what you need, you will not be happy. The best would be to how do you approach this situation when you have a client who say, okay, I want this because of this, and then you realize that no, that's not. Are you upfront or are you strategic?
Depends a little bit on the situation. Usually I give hints saying, oh, what you are looking for. I show them examples, for example, of our search on LinkedIn. Imagine they want to, let me see a good. So we had an example. I cannot refer the technology, but the technology that was, because it's very obvious who is the client, but a technology that was super rare. And I showed the client, hey, there is 10 people that do this in Portugal. No, I can give you a real example at Mercedes. We wanted to build a SAP commerce team in Portugal. This was in 2019, something like that. So there was people doing this in Germany, and they wanted to open a team in Portugal of SAP commerce at the time. And I researched. They told me, oh, we need this. And I was like, awesome, let me search. And I was like 20 people with those skills in Portugal. I was like, there is 20 people and you want 5 people. They wanted a team of 5 people to start, and in the future was more. So I told them, hey, there is 20. I will reach out this 20 today because it's 20. I can do it today, and let me see which results we have. But I'll tell you right now that we need to hire people from abroad. This will be more expensive, okay? Because we need to pay them relocation. And that's what we did. From those 20, we hired one, and then we hired everyone else from abroad. So showing usually data, it's one way. Showing alternatives, it's another way, because I told them, yeah, that's possible, but you need to go abroad. You need to go to Brazil, to India, to other countries, and bring people from abroad. Because usually what they want is not impossible. It's just the vertical that You cannot choose a very fast process with a lot of quality in a cheap price. You need to choose two of those. Okay, you cannot have the three. You cannot have fast, quality, and cheap. That doesn't exist. You need to pay for this. Pay well. Okay, if you have money, you can have it fast and with a very good quality. Okay, if you don't have a lot of money, or you are willing to be a little bit slower, or in a little bit less quality, or both at the same time, that probably will be it. So you present them that triangle. I always use it with the hiring managers. Hey, here there is three options. You can choose two. Which one do you want? I want the three of them. No, you can just choose two. That's the real worlds of possibilities. And usually smart people get it. And then you show alternatives. Like I can make faster if you can get more budget. I can make it cheaper if we can take one more month. I can make it very fast in a cheaper way if we can get junior people. So there is always a possibility to get what you want, just not 100% what you want, 80%. And this triangle always helped me with conversations with the hiring managers. I'm not sure if it has a name or not, but I think probably you guys already heard about this concept.
Yeah, as someone who's spent, I would say, the majority of my career in service-based industries, the client will ask for the moon and back and get upset when you bring them a rock from the moon, right? Um, but that's nothing new. I think it, managing client expectation is one of the biggest and most difficult parts of any services industry.
Yeah.
But it is critical because you're not just doing it because you want an easier time. You're doing it because you want your client to have the best possible outcome from the resources that they're able to muster, right? If we were having a conversation about hiring a super specialty kind of workforce team at Amazon, you could throw money at it all day. But, for smaller, medium-sized businesses, we have to be more realistic with their budgets, as well as opportunities, right? They might not be famous now, but we want to make sure that they're famous later for having a great product and great team. I am someone who is really, really fascinated with the villains of business. And I think one of the biggest villains in terms of hiring and anything in HR talent related spaces is like ATS, right? And for me, your service sounds very white glove, but there has to be at some point, you can't just go through hundreds and hundreds of applicants for a specific job. And I'm sure you have some kind of automation on the background, whether it's proprietary or you use a service or system. But my interest is in dispelling the idea that people just kind of get rejected for no reason, right? They get rejected because they don't have a specific keyword, or there's not a specific university name that's attached to their resume. I think a lot of people have the misconception that you plug a bunch of resumes into an ATS and then it spits out two or three names that are perfect, and then the rest of them get thrown to the trash. Can you talk to me about what it's like on the automation side? And maybe, is there a way to get past the paper point so that you can make sure that your resume or your background is fully described to someone that will actually care about their experience?
Yeah, I love that question. So just for the people that don't know what the ATS is, it's a application tracking system that is basically the system where recruiters receive the CVs. So when you do an application, your application and CV will go through a system, which I love ours. It's a partner that we have called Team Taylor. If you want to know about them, reach out to me because we love them. We share our ATS with our clients. They see on real time what is going on in their process, and it's really amazing. But on the automation side, before going to automation, I think there is one thing that I see more and more candidates failing. That is, most of all the jobs right now have application questions. So before, when you're applying, they ask your motivation, your salary. And now I'm taking screenshots at every, what they call a stupid answer I see on those questions. What is your motivation for this job? Money. What is your motivation for this job? It's on the CV. What is your experience in tech industry? It's on my CV. This is the type of questions that I'm used to read. Okay, those applications don't pass any screening. They are not called for interviews. Okay, because the people don't took 1 minute, 60 seconds to answer an answer. How I will hire someone that doesn't take 5 minutes to fill an application form? What this tells about their behavior as employees. For me, it tells that they don't care, they are lazy, that they don't pay attention. People with grammar mistakes on those questions are also a lot of them. So on those questions, we eliminate a lot of people. Really here, it's not really a way of automated. It's really something that you read the job description and you take a bit of care of answering the questions that the people put there. I know that job seekers say, oh, but I applied for 100 jobs, so I need to answer 100 questions. So then I come back to what I said in the beginning. If you know what you want, you don't need to apply to 100 jobs. You need to apply to 20. And then it's easier to answer 20 questions instead of 100. And probably some questions are the same. So you can create a portfolio of answers and then adapt. There is ways of you automate your application questions. Okay, so that's the first thing that I see so many people doing it that really upsets me. Upsets me because it's not being lazy on the CV, that also happens, but it's being lazy showing the recruiter your skills. Usually we ask more or less 2 or 3 questions in all the jobs. Your motivation, your most complex project or your most complex experience in the area of the job, and your salary expectation. Okay. And you can advocate that makes sense or doesn't make sense. This is what we ask. Okay. And we expect not a very long answer, but answer with some juice, with some consistency. And if people say it's on my CV or your motivation is money, I already know that you need a salary. Tell me what else, tell me why you want to work for this specific company. Okay, so this for me, it's very important. And then on the keyword siding, one more time, if a job is requiring Java, Python, this type of skills, and the CV doesn't have them, you'll be eliminated. With an ETS, without an ETS, with a human being review your CV or with the automatism on the ATS sides, if the keywords are not there, I cannot do anything. And one thing that people sometimes forget, it's just because you have a job title and your contract have a job title, that doesn't mean that your job title on your CV needs to be exactly that. Okay, you can be creative on your job title. And you can use keywords that maybe you don't do currently in your job, but you did on side projects, for example. So your CV, I never advocate for people to lie, never, but they can first omit some stuff. For example, people that have more than 20 years of experience. I tell them, don't put the years where you took your degree. Doesn't matter. Just put your degree. Don't put the years when you started, because they will age you. For example, the same thing with, you want to be a Java developer and you just have professional experience with Python, but you did a side project with Java. Put the side project there and put Java whenever you can put on the CV. So you can always adapt, you can always personalize. You don't need to lie in your CV, but you can take the stuff that doesn't matter and you can add stuff that matters, even though it's not professional 100%.
That was like a treasure trove of information. Um, if you're still listening, I'm so glad you made it to the end here. But this is phenomenal stuff. I think um, it's really interesting to see how skills develop in terms of creating ways to communicate your own background, your own progress, your own kind of movement towards a goal of yours, right? In this case, it's a job, but I'm sure there's a lot of different ways that you yourself, not just as a recruiter or a head of HR, but also as a business owner, have built up inside of your own personal career that led you to where you are. And really, that's kind of the basis for why Jeff and I started this podcast. We find that there are really interesting people out there, incredible careers that developed something that got them to where they are today. And we want to make sure that our listeners can have at least a little taste. And with that in mind, I have just one question. What's one skill, if you had to talk to maybe either people in HR or people looking for jobs, or someone who's just generally interested about the work you do? What's one skill that you developed throughout your career that had a massive influence on your success today?
Mm, I'm a bit debating between two that I always say that I want people that work with me have. It's being curious and being proactive.
Mm.
Because this is very generic in all on the professionals that you have. I think if you are curious about the field that you are in, and then if you act on that curiosity, so you search information and then you apply that information, that's pretty much it. You don't need much more things. Of course, you need to, but if you have both of them, that's already 50. You are at least 50% good professional. Okay, the rest will come. You can learn. Because you are curious, so you learn and you are proactive. You'll make things happen, and that's what companies need and want nowadays.
Yes, be curious. Gonçalo, thank you so much for your wisdom. But ladies and gentlemen, it's not finished yet. Gonçalo, now is the time where I'm going to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests. I will give you the magic microphone. And the magic microphone allow you for 2 minutes to talk to everyone on Earth of today, but also everyone who will be born in the next generations. So it's a unique time to share a universal message. What do you want to tell them?
No pressure, right? Okay, what I want to tell them. I think I want to tell them just two things. One I just shared, that is being curious. I think it's a must to have nowadays. Being curious, it's really what people need. Being curious for what others thinks, how others did, how others achieve certain things, because you'll do the same. And coming back for something that I shared before, it's really, if you try once, if you try twice, if you try 3, 4 times and you're getting the same results, you just need to try differently. So don't expect different results doing the same thing. Try your approach, be curious to change your approach to get different results. That's a little bit, yeah, what I did and what worked for me. So if you're curious and if you are always thinking about changing your approach to change your results, I think everyone will be happy, everyone will create more great stuff, and I hope the generations to come will be even better than us.
Yay!
Absolutely. Wow, what a cool message. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking around. If you're still here, please make sure to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, send this to a friend, especially a friend who is maybe stuck in a rut doing the same thing over and over again, needs a little refreshment with our friend Gonçalo's wisdom here. Thank you so much for joining us, and catch us next week on another episode of Casually Pro.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
you very
Bye-bye.